This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details. Hello everybody, my name is Gildart, and I think it's about time I say goodbye to my Wii U. This console is responsible for so many memories over the years, and in fact, I bought this Zelda Special Edition so that I could play the original Hyrule Warriors with it. But alas, there comes a time in every gamer's life where they have to unplug an old console. The Wii U served as such a great console to experience so many games on. It's a shame it just didn't hit the mark Nintendo or fans wanted it to. Many either thought it was just an upgraded Wii or an add-on for the console. Only those who follow the gaming industry really fully understood what the Wii U was. The console launched November 18th, 2012 here in North America, which was almost a whole month before its Japanese release on December 8th. Even Europe got the console before Japan on November 30th, which is kinda surprising. Unlike the Wii U offered HDMI output at 1080p. Some games like Warriors Orochi 3 Hyper even ran better on that console than on the PS3 or 360. For a while there, the Wii U was the best console to play your multi-platform games on, and apparently a while lasts just under a year. In November of 2013, the PS4 hit the scene and became the definitive way to play most multi-platform games that appeared on the Wii U. God, I wonder how Nintendo feels. After dropping Sony from their Nintendo PlayStation project, Sony just decided, screw this, I'll do it myself. Then proceeded to outsell Nintendo's consoles for almost every generation after that. Even though the Wii U was overshadowed by the competition at the time, I still bought a handful of games for the console, and one of those being Xenoblade Chronicles X. Yes, I have 2 copies. Do I look like someone who would have one? I barely touched the first Xenoblade on the Wii, doing about 6 episodes of a Let's Play back in the day, but X was the cool new thing, and it took me 8 years to finish it! It took me so long to get around to finally finishing Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, partly because I finish games almost as often as I save money. This was money well spent. I finish about 1 to 2 games a year if I'm lucky. I work a full-time job, plus working on YouTube videos takes up a majority of my time. So I really only have time to finish smaller games or games that instantly hook me. This is one of the reasons I decided to stream games from start to finish. Maybe this will be my way that I actually get some closure. I've finished games live on stream before, but those have been games I've usually started off stream. Xenoblade Chronicles Cross also didn't pull in many views, partly because I'm more known for my Warriors content, but also because YouTube kept copyright claiming random episodes. Episodes 1 through 4 were perfectly fine, then episode 5 got hit because of the song Melancholia by Amy Blackschlager. Episodes 6 and 7 were apparently fine, but ever since episode 8, the song Black Tar by Sawano would get claimed. Black Tar being the battle theme for Xenoblade Chronicles Cross. I don't know why the rest of the episodes were fine, but whatever. I wasn't playing Xenoblade Chronicles Cross for the views. I was playing it for the intention of unplugging my Wii U once I was done. I almost have as many cords behind my gaming setup as I have virginity on my desk. But the Wii U isn't the first console I've decided to unplug. Between the two of us, Chelsea and I have a collection of every Nintendo console, except the Virtual Boy, every Sony console, every Xbox console, with the exception of the series, and even an Atari 2600, Ouya, N-Gage, WonderSwan, and every Sega console except the Master System, Nomad, and Saturn. I actually have some stories about collecting consoles, so not only do I want to talk about my memories with the Wii U, but I also want to talk about all the consoles that I've unplugged, starting with the Sega Saturn. Now you might be saying, wait, Chris, you just said you don't have a Sega Saturn. Don't put words in my mouth. I actually owned a Sega Saturn at one point. I even owned a handful of the greats for the console. I had Virtua Fighter, Knights, Panzer Dragoon, Fighting Vipers, you know, the classics. But I really needed to upgrade my PC in 2021 so I could begin streaming again. Back in late 2020, I was running into some issues with my streams. Hell, I was running into issues with my PC, period. If my PC was just left to its own devices, blue would become its favorite color. So I decided to sell my Sega Saturn and most of my games that I had at the time to buy the newer PC. I did end up holding on to my copies of Nights into Dreams, Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, for obvious reasons, and Panzer Dragoon. Both copies of Nights and Panzer Dragoon were loose. So for Nights, I printed off this very horny custom case, and for Panzer Dragoon, I bought the classic edition of the remake on Switch, which came in an actual Sega Saturn case. This is really neat because now I have a case for both the remake and the original. Unfortunately, I now have no way of playing any of my Sega Saturn games. And I did get rid of a couple of pricier games, but making content is something I have a passion for, and if owning one less Sega Saturn means that I can make videos, I mean, I can still be happy and filled with regret. The Saturn was the only console I unplugged and sold. Everything else I still own. Staying with Sega, I believe the Genesis was the first console I actually unplugged. Gee, I wonder why. With how much Sega has ported Genesis games to other platforms, I think it's no wonder Genesis consoles are so much cheaper than Saturns. Hey, how much for a Sega Genesis?
Dude, I will pay you $40 to take one off my hands.
Alright, well then how about a Sega Saturn?
How many kidneys you got?
The only Genesis games I really want to play are on the Ultimate Genesis Collection. And even if I wanted at a better resolution, I can pick up each game on Steam for like a couple of bucks. Except the Sonic games. But Sonic games are a dime a dozen. There is a multitude of ways to play those games. Thank the gods they didn't do this with columns! I don't have many memories with Sega games beyond Sonic. I've been meaning to try other games like Vector Man and Beyond Oasis, but I keep going back to Sonic and the greatest 16-bit game of all time, fucking columns! The Genesis and Saturn aren't the only Sega consoles I've decided to unplug. In fact, I don't have any Sega consoles plugged in anymore. The Dreamcast was the last Sega console I unplugged, partially because I really like and actively played that console, but also because I was in denial. Most of the games on Dreamcast that I really want to play were playable on other consoles. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 were released on Xbox 360 and are backwards compatible on Xbox One and Series, and were also released on PC. Jet Set Radio has been ported to a handful of consoles. Even some of the more obscure games I own have been released elsewhere, like my Dreamcast copy of Pier Solar, a Dreamcast game that was released in 2015. This version, to my knowledge, could only be obtained by backing the game on Kickstarter, which of course I did. The Dreamcast is one of the best consoles ever, but I also own the game on PS4, so it's not like I would actually play the Dreamcast version for any other reason than the unique experience. And if I really want to play something that isn't available on a console I have plugged in, I can always be a criminal. When I upgraded my PC after selling my Saturn, emulation became a more available option for me to gather gameplay footage. Of course, I would use emulation to record gameplay footage of consoles that don't allow for proper recording, like PSP. Sure, I could record it with the PSP component cables, but it's so zoomed out that I would need to zoom in on the footage every time I record anything. Plus, PPSSPP runs on just about anything. I'm pretty sure my N-Gage could run the damn thing. But thanks to emulation, I finally decided to unplug my PS2s. You heard that right, I have multiple. 2 to be exact, specifically the silver PS2 Slim and a Japanese Sakura Gold PS2 Fat. I found the Japanese PS2 on Facebook Marketplace. It came with the first 5 Crash games in Japanese too. I already had some Japanese games as well, just because I was collecting, but now I can finally play them. I said play, not understand. This was how I got to experience games like Dynasty Warriors Gundam Special and Namco Cross Capcom. Not only that, thanks to owning a Japanese PS2, I was able to import games that were cheaper in Japanese than their North American counterparts. Dragon Seeds was a game that I had longed to own again, but to drop like $100 just for nostalgia is kinda crazy. I mean, who do I look like? I'm the guy that buys a complete in-box Japanese Xbox 360 so I can specifically play Dynasty Warriors 5 Special, not the guy who would buy an English copy of Dragon Seeds on PS1. But I ended up unplugging both PS2s when I was able to get PCSX2 running on my new PC. Now that's how I play all of my PS2 games. I even got around to streaming Inuyasha Feudal Combat, playing through the story and unlocking all of the characters for a nice hit of nostalgia. Huh! Everything looks so much better with these glasses on!
Yeah, it wasn't very good. But what was good was playing many of my PS2 games with a better resolution and frame rate. But the PS2 wasn't the only console that I replaced with emulation for the purpose of gameplay footage. The next console to get unplugged was the GameCube, thanks to the Dolphin emulator. I didn't jump on GameCube or Wii emulation at first because I had an older Wii that could play GameCube games in my setup. I also had component cables for it, which meant I didn't have to shell out like $400 for the GameCube ones. I barely played GameCube games anyways. Maybe I'd gather some Mystic Heroes footage for a video where I reference it, but for the most part, the games that I want to play got ported to other systems. Mario Sunshine was included in the Mario 3D All-Stars package, and Metroid Prime ended up getting a Switch release as well. Only the first one, but we can't win them all. Really, I'd say the only GameCube games I would love to see a port of are Star Fox Adventures and Assault. Adventures may not be the best Star Fox game, but it's a pretty decent Zelda game. Then there's Soul Calibur 2. We did get an HD remaster on PS3 and 360, the latter being backwards compatible on Xbox One and Series. This remaster included both Heihachi and Spawn, who were originally PS2 and Xbox exclusive characters respectively, but the GameCube release had Link, which would have been incredible to see a port on Wii U. And with that console being dead and about to be unplugged, a Switch port would be cool to see. Though, I don't imagine we'd get that. Namco Bandai has been more focused on their current games, and Nintendo may or may not allow Link to appear again. But all of this is to say that I unplugged the Wii for good. GameCube games run so well on Dolphin, and I still had the Wii U if a Wii game didn't run that well through emulation. Then we have to talk about everyone's favorite Nintendo consoles, the NES, the SNES, and the N64. These were all unplugged not too long after the Genesis. This wasn't really because I don't play retro games. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I love going back and playing older games, whether it's for nostalgic reasons or playing a game I saw ads for as a kid and never got the chance to play. This is one of the reasons I wanted an N-Gage for the longest time, and then a friend got me one in the box as a Christmas gift. No, the reason I decided to unplug these retro Nintendo consoles is because most of the games for these consoles that I would want to play are available now on the Switch. Hell, the rare games that came out on N64 are available on Xbox through Rare Replay and look phenomenal on Xbox One X. Sure, there are games for NES and SNES that aren't available anywhere, but for those I can emulate just like the GameCube and Wii. Jumping over to Microsoft now, the next console to get unplugged was my original Xbox. This was honestly a tough decision, but it really made the most sense. I don't have an Xbox emulator, mostly because I just couldn't get one to work on my PC, but Xbox has done wonders with backwards compatibility on Xbox 360, One, and Series to make the most important original Xbox games playable and with better resolutions and frame rates at that. I can't believe that I can go back and play something like Conquer Live and Reloaded in 4K. If I had a 4K TV, but even playing these games at 1080p, the resolution and performance boost it gets on Xbox One X is just so great. Plus, a lot of the original Xbox games I can't play this way are multi-platform, so if they're not available on PC, at least I can emulate the PS2 or GameCube versions. I will always opt for an official way to play these games if I can, but I also want to get the best gameplay footage that I can for my videos, so I'm trying to have the perfect balance of official and emulated gaming options.
My lawyer told me to say that.
And this brings me to the final console I unplugged before the Wii U. We're jumping back over to Sony for this one. I still have my PS TV plugged in if I ever need to get gameplay footage from the Vita, but I'll likely unplug that eventually. There are probably 3 or 4 games I would want to play on here before doing so, but we're not talking about the PS TV. So maybe the PS1? How could you ask such a stupid question? The PS2 can play PS1 games. Who in this day and age still has a PS1 plugged in? No, the Sony console I decided to unplug was the PS4. This is for a multitude of reasons, but mostly because the PS5 is backwards compatible with PS4 games. Most of them even running better than on PS4. I've gotta say, going back and playing Dynasty Warriors 8 on the PS5 with all the boosts in graphics and performance have my mouth literally watering. Like, I've got all of the trophies for the game. I've put in around 600 hours into this file alone, and I am still playing it to slowly work up all of my characters to max stats. Some games like Infamous Second Son getting a boost beyond what the PS4 Pro would get. That being said, the PS5 isn't without some drawbacks. Some games like Senran Kagura Estival Versus have texture problems, while games like Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate and Warriors All-Stars have jittering issues. Plus, games like Fate Extella just don't recognize save files. And don't get me started with the PS2 games that were released for PS4 through one of Sony's initiatives. This was an attempt to get the PS4 to be considered backwards compatible by releasing PS2 games with updated resolutions and trophies. It was honestly a good initiative that I was disappointed to see them not release some better games for. We still got greats like both Dark Clouds, Primal, and even all of the Jak games, but Jak was already released in HD on PS3, and that version looks better than the Jak games on PS4? And we didn't get to see other classics like Dynasty Warriors 4, Fatal Frame 2 or 3, and Sony, do you really expect me to go back and plug in my PS2 just to play something like Neopets The Darkest Fairy? Yeah, you're right, this would probably make my PS4 explode. But these PS2 games we were getting ran pretty well on PS4. I wish I could say the same about the PS5. Some of these games on PS5 have some really big issues that can render the game borderline unplayable. Just loading up the Warriors, I am greeted with a message letting me know that I may experience issues with this game, which leads me to believe that Sony isn't gonna do shit about this. It would be nice if Sony released PS5 versions of these classic games so that they would run better on that console, especially when some of these games are included on the PlayStation Plus Premium package. But none of that really matters to me because all of these games are playable elsewhere. If not on PC or Xbox One, then through emulation. And Sony, if games like Dark Cloud, The Warriors, and Primal ran better on PS5, I wouldn't have to resort to a form of gaming you look down on. I would gladly play these games on your console if you made them playable. But all that brings us to today. With a heavy heart, I must make the final decision and unplug my Wii U. With Nintendo and other publishers moving most of their games from Wii U to Switch, the only reason for me to keep this thing plugged in would be for the experience of playing these games with a controller larger than the game case for the console. I missed out on buying Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage 2 on Wii U while the store was still around. I own the game already on Xbox 360, but the Wii U outputs a slightly higher resolution, so I'd be interested to see how it would look in comparison. I am so happy that games like Mario Kart 8, Hyrule Warriors, and Pokken Tournament were ported to the Switch. The latter one being a big surprise considering I didn't think it sold nearly as well as anyone would have wanted it to on the Wii U. But they decided to port Pokken Tournament and not Xenoblade Chronicles X. Yeah, that's the whole reason I played this with the intention of unplugging my Wii U afterwards. Since we haven't received any notion that they plan to port it to the Switch, I still wanted to play through this game. There are still other Wii U games that haven't been ported to other modern consoles. Sonic Lost Worlds was released on PC as well, but that's it. Not only that, there were Nintendo-specific stages that we'd miss out on if it was ported to anything other than the Switch. I also don't think this is ever going to happen because A, Sonic has definitely moved on with titles like Forces, Mania, and Frontiers, and B, who's playing Sonic Lost Worlds in 2023? The two games I am most surprised about being stuck on the Wii U are the two Zelda HD remasters. Wind Waker specifically is a must to be ported to the Switch. Can you imagine having Wind Waker HD on a console that actually has a player base and is on the go? Twilight Princess HD would be another nice addition, but I'm not dying to play through that as much as Wind Waker. I guess the remasters of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are also stuck on the 3DS, but that's even more of a reason to put out these 4 games as a mass dump of Zelda games for the Switch, especially after the success of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. You've got the biggest fan base of Zelda that you've ever had, ready to give you money, but I guess Nintendo just doesn't like making money.
Case in point.
Nintendo Land is another game that's stuck on the Wii U, and sure, it's designed around the Wii U gamepad and was more of a tech demo than anything, but it was still an extremely fun experience all things considered. You could also work around the gamepad-specific minigames by making them require being played in handheld mode. I think this would be a cool game to drop for like $20 for those who enjoyed the game. Maybe even give this the same model that they gave Wii Sports Club on Wii U. Make it free to play with only a couple of the minigames that don't require the gamepad available, and have people pay for each minigame or a package for all of it. I imagine some people would get in on that, myself included. Nintendo Land is something I feel every Nintendo fan should experience at some point. I mean, Nintendo could release worse Wii U games on the Switch. Star Fox Zero is one that I bought alongside Star Fox Guard because I'll be damned if I don't have Star Fox Guard. I ended up playing neither of them. Yeah, this was a purchase sheerly out of fear that I wouldn't be able to buy Star Fox Guard again physically. It's now going for $10 to $15, so I didn't really need to buy it brand new. I still think this game would be awesome to see ported to Switch. Maybe remove or make the motion controls an option and refine the gameplay to be better suited for the Switch. I think that with some more time and care, Star Fox Zero could be a decent game for Star Fox fans. The last game I think we need on Switch would be NES Remix 1 and 2. These are perfect bite-sized challenges for on-the-go gaming. You would think that this would be a no-brainer to release on the Switch. Maybe it would even be the perfect time to make a Volume 3 with some more hidden gems from the NES library. I know NES Remix suggested you to buy the full versions of some of these NES games on the Wii U Virtual Console, but you could do something similar with the Switch Online service to gain access to the NES library that way. Hell, instead of making the NES Remix 3, make SNES Remix. That would be even better. And you have access to both NES and SNES games through the Switch Online service. Oh my god, Nintendo, just hire me! The other option for porting Wii U games would be a bit more of an expensive and likely less utilized option, but would make for the best experience for players. If Nintendo put out a second screen controller that you could put your Joy-Cons into when your Switch was docked, and maybe you could dock your Switch onto it for portable play, I don't think anyone except Nintendo would make use out of a peripheral like that, but it would make porting Wii U games to the Switch a little bit easier. Then games like Star Fox Zero and Nintendo Land could easily move over, with the only issue being programming so that it could run properly on the console with the new peripheral. This could also allow for Nintendo to start offering DS and 3DS games through the Nintendo Switch Online service. The Wii U did have some DS games that were available through the Virtual Console, so it would be really cool to see some of them make their way to the Switch, especially Mario 64 DS. But I just don't see that happening without them being very clunky or needing another expensive peripheral.
In the end, this is a really sad day for me. The Wii U gave me so many great memories. Even though this console really just became my way to play Nintendo first-party titles, I still really enjoyed what Nintendo was putting out. Things like Wind Waker HD, Mario Kart 8, Hyrule Warriors, Bayonetta 2, these are all great games. The Wii U, for me, will go down as a console that just wasn't given the opportunity it needed to shine. It's still a great console, but it's time to say goodbye.
Sure, it doesn't mean goodbye forever. I'm not selling the console, but it does mean that if I ever want to play my Wii U specifically, that I'll need to re-hook up all the cables again. To help with space and fire safety, I did try to keep all systems unplugged except the one that I was playing at the time. But with the type of videos I make and my tendency to want to play random games at my fingertips, that setup just wasn't logistically sound. Keeping all the wires in labeled bags, needing to swap which consoles were plugged in, some needing composite or component to HDMI converters to get gameplay footage of, it just wasn't going to work out. So it's not very likely I'll be hooking up my Wii U to get a 5-second clip of Wind Waker HD when I mention it in a future video. I'll likely just keep the footage I gathered from this video as a just in case. But I will always hold out hope that we will see games like Star Fox Zero, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, Sonic Lost World, and of course Xenoblade Chronicles X come to Switch. My friend and I even joked that the moment that I finish Xenoblade Chronicles X live on stream is when Nintendo will finally announce a Switch port, but I think we all know what game desperately needs a port on Switch.
Fucking Ben 10 Omniverse!
Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. What was your favorite game on the Wii U? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to help support the channel and what I do here, you can join the guild just like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon, or you can donate in a one-time fashion and join the volunteer unit over on Ko-fi. A special shout out to my guild general, Beggy Beg Beg, for supporting this channel at the top tier. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.